Welcome. I am Veronica Waters, anchor and reporter for News Talk WSB Radio, and you are watching the Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young debate series. This is the general election debate for candidates in Congressional District 9. Now, in order to ensure everybody's safety, the candidates and the panelists are all participating from their homes. The Atlanta Press Club gives a special thank you to Georgia Public Broadcasting for helping to organize these debates. Now, let's meet our candidates, and they are in alphabetical order. Republican candidate Andrew Clyde spent 28 years in the United States Navy after graduating from the University of Notre Dame. Clyde holds a master's degree from the University of Georgia in corporate finance and entrepreneurship. He owns a nationwide firearms business. And Democrat Devin Pandy was born in Belize and served in the United States Army for 21 years. He has since made his home in Georgia and enjoys community theater and rehoming a variety of animals. We're joined by Blake Aued, a reporter with Flagpole magazine, who will help me question the candidates. Now, let's get started. Candidates will have 60 seconds to answer their questions and 30 seconds to respond to rebuttals. I will hold up a piece of paper, letting candidates know when they have 10 seconds remaining. And for the full set of rules, you can visit the Atlanta Press Club's website, and that's atlantapressclub.org. To start the debate, each panelist will be asked questions by the panel. And Blake, you're getting the first question to Devin Pandy.
Yeah, Mr. Pandy, as Ms. Waters mentioned, you were born in Belize and your parents were immigrants. So I was wondering what kind of insights you could give us, given your background on the immigration system in the United States.
Well, what I would say is, as proud as I am to be an immigrant and to have lived the American dream, I will say that my unique perspective as an immigrant isn't one that you need to understand what is going on. I immigrated here as an infant, so I really don't remember those things anyway. I don't remember coming over. All I remember is growing up here. But you don't need to have my experience to understand the experience. All you have to do is look and see what's happening right now. We have children who are being separated from their parents, and who may have no way of reuniting with their parents. We also have over half of farm workers in our district. They're undocumented, and our economy relies on these neighbors, and so we can't demonize a community of a community that feeds the country and keeps our entire.
That's time. Thank you, Mr. Pandy. All right, now I will ask a question to Andrew Clyde. Mr. Clyde, the U.S. Senate is moving forward with confirmation hearings on the nomination of Judge Coney Barrett from the 7th Judicial Circuit for the seat of Associate Justice on the U.S. Supreme Court, which was formerly held by Associate Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Should the Senate and White House await the results of this upcoming election a short 2 weeks later, or should they await the results of tabulation as well as the potentially disputed election results before moving ahead with confirmation? I can't hear you, Mr. Clyde. I think you have muted your microphone. There you go.
Thank you. I think the president has done his job in nominating an excellent person in Amy Barrett. I think she will do a fantastic job. And I think the Senate should do its job as well. They started confirmation hearings today. And I believe that as soon as those confirmation hearings are wrapped up, that the Senate should vote on the confirmation of Amy Coney Barrett.
All right, thank you. All right, let's go to Blake, and it's your question to ask Andrew. Your time to ask Andrew a question.
Mr. Clyde, you were involved in a dispute with the IRS that actually led to some congressional reforms regarding seizures of back taxes. And now you want to abolish the IRS. So I would like to know, what would you plan to replace it with? What is your vision for the tax system?
Well, thank you. It was actually not seizure of back taxes. It didn't actually involve taxes at all. It was a civil asset forfeiture seizure, which now, due to the law that Congress passed called the Clyde Hirsch-Sowers Respect Act, doesn't allow the IRS to do that anymore. It's now illegal. But I would go to a fair tax to answer your question. I think a fair tax is the most fair. It would eliminate the tax return in everyone's life, so no one would have to file a tax return anymore. I think that is the most fair way of taxation. We have to have, our federal government has to be funded, and governments have to be funded. But I think a fair tax, as opposed to the graduated tax system that we have right now, is the best way to go.
10 seconds. All right, that's it. Thank you so much, Andrew. And I will ask the final question to Devin Pandy. Let's talk about coronavirus. Our public health experts are warning that as we move into the winter and into fall, as things get colder and wet weather is returning, we can likely expect a resurgence of cases, hospitalizations, even deaths. Have you each actually had your flu shot? And if not, why not? And if and when a COVID-19 vaccine is available, do you intend to take the vaccine and have it administered to your family?
Yes, I would. Unfortunately, there has been a failure of leadership at the federal and state levels. Back when the president was denying that this disease was even real, calling it a hoax, the North Georgia health system and some local governments began coordinating a response. We lost another rural hospital just this month in this state, actually in this district. Um, I have taken my flu shot, and I will receive my shot for COVID-19 once we are sure that our medical and scientific professionals have assured us that all the precautions have been taken to ensure that it is a safe and effective like inoculation. Right now, because we have been told by this administration that it is a hoax when it wasn't, because we have been told so many false things during this time, at this time, I do not feel secure in believing that there is a safe cure if it only comes from the administration.
And that is time. Thank you so much, Mr. Pandy. All right, that concludes the first portion of our debate. The candidates will now take turns asking each other questions. Candidates will have 15 seconds to ask the question. Candidates then get 60 seconds to respond, and there will be 30 seconds for a rebuttal. Now, by random selection, Andrew Clyde will get to ask the first question to your opponent.
Mr. Pandy, as a military member, having served 21 years in the Army, I believe, is that correct? And many countries overseas, I would assume, what do you think was the best or your favorite country to visit, to serve in?
The best country to serve in, absolutely the United States. We do so many things here in the military, just as many good things here as we do overseas. That said, when I went to Panama to relieve a refugee crisis, it was a humanitarian effort that the United States military endeavored in. And it was a rafting crisis of women and men trying to escape communist Cuba. And my father was actually stationed in Panama at the time, and our base was literally a 5-minute walk to his house. So being able to be there and do a humanitarian cause, and also visit my family, and be able to share Army stories with my father, that was one of the better times in my
All right,
career.
that's time. Thank you. And rebuttal?
I have none.
All right, thank you then, Devin. That means it's your turn to ask a question.
Yes, Mr. Clyde, thank you so much for joining me today for this debate. My question is it true that you, and I believe that you claim to believe in small government, is it true that you actually sued the government of Athens, Clarke County because they passed a local ordinance to protect their residents from COVID-19, and that your lawsuit wasn't really about protecting people, it was more about having your business be classified as an essential business?
All right, that's your time.
Okay. Did I sue Athens Clarke County? Absolutely, I sued Athens Clarke County. They were trying to shut our business down. You know, I look at essential businesses and say, how does the government determine what business is essential and what business is not? For those employees working in that business that the government decides is not essential, that's an essential business for those employees and for the owners of that business. So I don't think the government has that authority to determine what business is essential and what business is not. And that's exactly what Athens Clarke County was trying to do. You know, they were also trying to keep people in their homes and deny people their First Amendment rights under the Constitution. So I think what Athens Clarke County did was wrong, and therefore I took them to court. I challenged them in court. Fortunately, Governor Kemp, did a great job. He basically took the authority of Athens Clarke County away, and we won our case. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for that question and the rebuttal. That now concludes our second round. For those just joining us, this is the debate between candidates for Congressional District 9. We will now go back to the panel to ask questions until we run out of time. I will determine when a rebuttal is appropriate, but candidates may raise their hand if they feel they should get a rebuttal. And Blake, you're going to get the first question in this round.
Well, this is for Mr. Clyde. I'd like to follow up on Mr. Pandy's question. I believe your lawsuit actually was dismissed. I guess you won the case when the governor shot down local shelter-in-place laws, but I believe it actually was dismissed. But you, your business received between $150,000 and $350,000 from the federal government through the Paycheck Protection Program. So when you're talking about your employees being out of work, you receive funding from the federal government to pay them for 10 weeks. So how is that consistent with being a small government conservative?
Well, when the government threatens to shut you down, which is exactly what happened, you know, you have to fight back, and that costs a lot to do that. So, you know, I believe in the Paycheck Protection Program. I thought it was a very good program because it keeps people working. You know, the ultimate stimulus package is to get people back to work and keep people working. So I think the Paycheck Protection Program was actually a good program. Now, there are many other things that were not, like, for example, giving an additional $600 as part of unemployment, which basically told people that, or paid people not to work. And that in and of itself has devastated small business. And small business is the backbone of America. And when small business is devastated, then our economy is devastated. And that's exactly what has happened. So I think that the Paycheck Protection Program was great, but the other programs were not.
All right. Thank you. Any follow-up? I've got to see a hand raised. Mr. Pandy?
Yes, ma'am. I would just like to thank Blake for asking that question. In Athens, my opponent cost taxpayers tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees on a frivolous lawsuit when local leaders, liberals and conservatives alike, passed a local ordinance for shelter in place. Why? Not because he didn't believe in the virus. He's a smart man. He knows it's real. But because he thought that his personal business should be counted as essential, like he always does. Now, Andrew Clyde only wants to be involved in government when it impacts his own bottom line.
All right, I'm going to ask the next question now, and I want to direct this one to Mr. Pandy. Do you support a universal basic income for Americans?
Thank you for that question. Yes, I do. I believe that, Alaska themselves, they show us that it is possible to do so. And Alaska thrives. The Alaskan citizens thrive. I don't see why in the United States using a carbon tax can't do the same for their for their people. This is the wealthiest nation on earth. It is about time that our citizens start reaping the benefits of that wealth.
Since we have a little extra time, I'd like to pose the same question to you, Andrew.
Could you repeat that question, please?
Sure. Do you support a universal basic income for working adults in the U.S.?
No, I do not. I do not. First off, who would that income be paid by? Would it be a government income that would be paid for by the government? No, I do not. I believe that people need to work in order to earn their income. And I believe that there should be no limit to what people can earn. All right. I also think that that if you create a basic universal income, then you're telling small business owners that that they don't have the ability to determine what they can afford to pay, and I think that's wrong.
All right, thank you. Blake, your turn.
Yeah, I'd like to go back to coronavirus for a second, and if you wouldn't mind, if I could direct this to both the candidates, but
We've got time.
I'd like to hear from each of you. The Democrats and Republicans are still pretty far apart on a new coronavirus relief bill, and it doesn't look likely that one is probably going to pass before the election. So I'd like to get your thoughts on what you would like to see in such a bill if that still hasn't been accomplished by the time you take office. And Mr. Clyde, you can go first.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I think in any federal legislation, the federal government needs to stay within its authority under the Constitution, which is the 18 enumerated powers of the Constitution. I think the ultimate stimulus package, as I mentioned a little earlier, is getting people back to work. That's what needs to happen. When we had the most amazing economy in the world, President Trump created the greatest economy the world has ever seen in the 3 years that he was in the first 3 years of his presidency. He can do that again, but it takes getting people back to work. I think the federal government needs to focus on encouraging states to get their people back to work. That is the best stimulus package that we could possibly pass.
All right, Mr. Pandy, let's hear from you.
Yes. First, I would like to begin by saying that my opponent is unfortunately incorrect. There are 18 powers in the Constitution specifically assigned to Congress. There are many more when we talk about the entire federal government. Look, I wish I could understand what the Republican Party believes on further COVID relief, but every day the president changes his mind. The GOP, they would like to pass something around $1 billion COVID relief package. Right now, Secretary Mnuchin has agreed to a 1.8 million, and the Democrats want more. I believe they want 2.2 billion, and the president is actually saying now that he would like to see a larger relief than that. So instead of the Republicans sitting by themselves,
right. That's your time, Mr. Pandy. Thank you so much. Sorry to cut you off there. We got to pay attention to those folks in the control room, okay? Let me ask a question. I'll direct this one to Mr. Clyde. Do you support background checks being conducted for all gun sales, closing any loopholes that now exist?
So you're basically talking about universal background checks on every gun.
Universal background checks.
Universal background checks. Okay. No, I do not support universal background checks. I think universal background checks are a very bad idea. When you support universal background checks, you're basically telling the federal government that you have the authority to regulate the Second Amendment. And, you know, the Second Amendment shall not be infringed. That's what the Constitution says. So I don't think the federal government has the authority for universal background checks.
All right. Thank you so much. Blake, next question to you.
I'll go to Mr. Pandy for this one. Nancy Pelosi said that she is going to step down as House Speaker by 2022. So if you are elected, who would you like to see as the next Speaker of the House, assuming Democrats still control the House, which appears likely?
Now, that is a very interesting question. You know, I can't really say that I have anyone in mind. I mean, we think we know what's going on in Congress as we watch TV and we see what's on C-SPAN, but actually being in Congress, getting to know what my fellow congressmen really stand for, I think that will speak more to who I would like to see in that leadership position. So at this point, I think it would be quite too soon for me to say that.
All right. Thank you so much. My question will be now to Andrew Clyde. there are so many issues that get split along partisan lines these days, leading to stalemates. There's inaction. And I wanted to know if there is an issue on which you would work with members of the Democratic Party should you get elected.
Sure. All sorts of issues I'd like to work with the Democratic Party on. I'll give you a great example. The Clyde Showers Respect Act, which reined in the authority of the Internal Revenue Service. I would love to work with Democrats on creating a fair tax. I think that's appropriate. It's fair across the board for everyone. I think, in fact, Congressman Doug Collins, our current congressman, I think led the way when he worked with Congressman John Lewis. And both of them were the primary supporters of the Clyde Showers Respect Act. It passed unanimously in the House. It passed unanimously in the Senate, and the president signed it into law as part of the Taxpayer First Act last year. So I think there's great examples of working together. I think we can work together. I look forward to working together. And I believe in that. Thank you.
Sure. Blake, your turn.
Okay, I'll ask one for Mr. Clyde, please. Scientists overwhelmingly believe that man-made climate change is close to reaching a tipping point where the effects are going to be irreversible. And if we don't reduce greenhouse gas emissions very soon, then it's going to be a disaster for the global economy. Do you agree with that assessment? And if so, what needs to be done to stay below that point?
Well, first off, I think scientists overwhelmingly have continued to change their tune on climate change, and different facts have produced different results, and they're opposing results. There are some scientists who believe it, and many scientists who don't. I will hold court with those scientists who don't believe in man-made climate change. We have 4 seasons of the year. The climate changes every year, 4 times. So I believe that. But I do not believe in climate change. I also do not believe in the Green New Deal, which is a part of that. I'm very glad that our president removed us from the Paris climate change agreement. I think that was the right decision. I think that put America first and did not allow the world to regulate America through false climate change policies.
All right, we have just maybe 15 seconds for a quick rebuttal.
I would just like to say that I'm not sure what science my opponent is referring to, but 97% of scientists around the world agree that climate change is real. Humans may not have started it, but we are definitely making it exponentially worse. And it wouldn't be something that sets the entire West Coast on fire if it wasn't real.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Pandy. That is all of the time that we have for questions today. Each candidate will now have 60 seconds for a closing statement. And Devin, Pandy, you get the first closing statement.
Thank you very much. This has been a tough election cycle, and now it's time to make a decision on who you want to represent you in Congress. On one hand, you have yet another millionaire businessman attempting to buy an election by dropping $750,000 on his own campaign, a millionaire who has made millions from the same government agencies he's now telling you he's against. State Representative Matt Gertler, the most conservative member of the Georgia legislature, tried to warn us about this during the primary. When someone as conservative as Matt Gertler and someone as progressive as myself are telling you the exact same thing, believe it. You know, I'm one of you because I believe in the. I'm not a millionaire, like many of you. I'm barely a thousandaire. I didn't make a backroom deal with Doug Collins to help me target the IRS so that I could run for his seat when he decides to run for Senate. I don't have $940,000 in assets for the IRS to target. I am just like you. I want to have good health care, a good job, a good paying job.
And that is time.
I want to see my.
Thank you, Mr. Pandy. I appreciate you stopping there. Andrew Clyde, you get the final closing statement.
Thank you. Thank you to Georgia Public Broadcasting for hosting this digital forum. My name is Andrew Clyde. I'm an evangelical Christian, a 28-year combat-tested veteran, a gun store small business owner, and the only candidate in this election endorsed by Georgia's lone Freedom Caucus member, Congressman Jody Hice. I'm running to be your next congressman because I believe We need people in Washington who will protect our innocent unborn, defend our gun rights, build the wall on the border, proudly stand for our president, and end overreaching unconstitutional government. I defeated the corrupt IRS in the courtroom and through the legislature. And this experience showed me there's a very thin line between we the people running our government and our government running us. And I believe that we the people need to run our government. I'm Andrew Clyde. Please go to clydeforcongress.com to learn more about me and see my Fox News interview. I ask for your prayers and your vote. Please vote Andrew Clyde for Congress. Soli Deo Gloria. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. That concludes our debate. Great job, gentlemen. We would like to remind voters that Election Day is Tuesday, November 3rd. Don't forget to turn in your absentee ballot if you requested one, and early voting in person is now underway. Thanks to the candidates and panel for participating in the debate. I would also like to thank the Atlanta Press Club and Georgia Public Broadcasting for arranging today's debate. For more information on the full schedule of debates, please visit atlantapressclub.org. This debate will be available for viewers to watch on demand on Atlanta Press Club's Facebook page and on Georgia Public Broadcasting's page, gpb.org. I am Veronica Waters. Thank you for joining us for the Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young debate series.